how you became such a stands with a fist person within the male business world, because I think there are a lot of women out there, younger women, even middle age and older, who are maybe looking for career changes. They might still feel this male dominant thing coming at them. And what did you do? What about Christy Shear made her, or whatever your maiden name was before, made you who you were in terms of like, look, I am woman. I don't talk to me like a woman. Talk to me like a person.
Right.
As a person.
I always knew my worth. I didn't know my worth in college because I wasn't good at college. But the minute I got out into my first career, I knew I was good and I knew what I was talking about. Partly because I chose a field that I knew a lot about, right? Living with diabetes most of your life. So I picked something that I knew about and I picked something that I was passionate about. So I think the first and foremost, I came in knowledgeable and then I just grew that knowledge. So I think women coming in today is like, just know your power, first of all, understand that. I've never questioned my power. I just knew from the very beginning that I know what I'm talking about. I don't care if you're man or woman who I was talking to. It's just how I've grown up. I grew up with a single mom. My dad was killed when I was very young. So at 9 years old, I lost my dad. And I watched a homemaker put herself back through college. She went into art design, which I didn't understand that, but then ended up buying an art gallery and framing. And I watched this woman from the time that I was 9 years old just kind of pick up, from where my dad was dead, has 2 girls to raise, and took off from there. And she has the strongest work ethic and just knew what she wanted and what she had to do with nobody telling her. So I watched this woman as a great role model to what I wanted to be. And so I just never really second guessed myself in the very beginning.
Yeah, so that sort of you had it in your genes, but there's a nurture element. That's actually a pretty profound statement because it's true, right? 'Cause it's genetic largely, right? The type 1 situation, or perhaps an autoimmune that's acquired. I don't know, because to your knowledge, are there other type 1 dual parents that don't have type 1 offspring? Because you said both your daughters aren't type 1.
Right. So it's interesting because in the beginning, Tom and I tried to find other couples that were married to type 1s.
Yeah.
And we were told by physicians that, look, if you're short and your husband's short, too bad, your kids are going to be short. And we just haven't, had that be the case.
Right.
Doesn't mean that the kids don't have some kind of endocrine problem,
Yeah.
because both of them may. So it's just that part we may have passed down bad genes. But it's interesting. There's not a lot. To this day, I have not met another 2 type 1 couples, which is really interesting because you would think just a lot of type 1 people that living with type 1 diabetes go into the field of diabetes. So they either become a diabetes educator, they become an endocrinologist, they get into sales. But like my company alone, we probably have 13 people with type 1 diabetes. Type 1 is a very rare disease. People hear about diabetes all the time because of type 2. I think it's now up to 1.5 million people with type 1 diabetes in the U.S. That's a rare disease.
Yeah. Yeah, and so I'm sure there's been a ton of work in the genetics of it, but look, even current medical science doesn't know so much. It's crazy that gene expression could be mediated by stress factors 3 or 4 or 5 generations prior to you, right?
Yeah.
Or it could be stress during gestation. It could be environmental activation, deactivation. There's a ton of stuff that just no one really knows, right?
Right.
Biology is amazing and how it can self-correct, but unfortunately with this area, it just hasn't been able to self-correct yet. Hopefully there'll be a way to stimulate it. It can.
There are theories that it starts with a flu or a cold or a stressor. Tom's parents divorced when he was 3 years old. And 3 years later, he developed type 1 diabetes. So he's had type 1 diabetes since he was 6 years old.
And your dad passed when
And then-
2 or 3 years before you.
So I was 9 when my
Yeah.
dad passed.
Yeah.
3 years later, I developed type 1 diabetes. So I always just think there's a conspiracy with 3 years and developing. But they do think there's something, whether it's a sickness or some kind of environmental stressor that happens that starts the body to attacking its good beta cells. So
Yeah.
it's interesting, like because people don't know, right? They don't understand the why the body starts doing what it's doing to attack all the beta cells.
Yeah, you might have had more susceptible gene basis. Nature loads a gun, we often pull the trigger, right? And so a lot of people worry about, oh, what's in my genes? The reality is a huge percentage of what we are and what we become is a result of what we experience from human interaction perspective, virus, pathogens, air, food, lack or over-exercise. All that stuff is just the stimulus that's just a massive percentage of gene expression.
Yeah.
So it's just a side note, but yeah, I didn't mean to get two sides nerdy at you, but this is cool stuff. I again, I just didn't know what your world was, and we lived, literally down the street for years, right? And I'd see you at parties all the time. I mean, from the man-woman thing, I know you hung more with the dudes than you did with the women a lot of times. Is that just because you're just more comfortable over your career?